Imagine for just a second the ultimate lifespan.
Right.
I want you to really picture yourself living to be 120 years old.
That's a big number.
It is. But here is the critical catch. You are not spending those later decades the way we, currently picture aging.
Which is usually pretty bleak.
Exactly. You are not confined to a hospital bed. You're not sitting there organizing a weekly pill box with 20 different medications just to manage the daily aches or the cognitive fog or that inevitable metabolic decline.
Yeah, that standard trajectory of getting older.
Right. Instead, I want you to imagine having the boundless energy, the sharp, clear mind, and the absolute physical vitality of a 30-year-old.
That's the dream.
Picture yourself walking through the woods. Your back is completely straight. Your muscles are strong. They're capable. They're responsive. You're living a fully charged, vibrant life. You're carrying the wisdom of a century, but you have the physiology of someone in their prime.
It's an incredible visualization.
That is the dream scenario for human longevity. But the obvious burning question for all of us is how on earth do we actually get there?
Yeah.
Today we are going on a mission to figure exactly that out. Welcome to the deep dive. We have a truly fascinating stack of source material today.
We really do.
We are unpacking a translated script from a viral video that proposes a radical and honestly wildly counterintuitive strategy for extreme longevity.
Counterintuitive is putting it mildly, I think.
Yeah, the text calls it the energy minimization strategy. And to ground this entire discussion, the source material points us away from modern biohacking labs. It instead looks towards some of the most extreme, mind-bending examples of long-lived animals on the planet.
Which is such a refreshing angle to take.
It is. The text highlights the Greenland shark, which the source notes can live over 400 years.
Over 4 centuries.
We are talking about an animal that was swimming in the ocean before the Renaissance even began. It's crazy. It also brings up the bowhead whale, breezing past the 200-year mark, and the Galapagos tortoise, which easily lives over 150 years.
It's a remarkable lineup to draw from, and what makes this source material so compelling is that it immediately challenges our baseline assumptions about what it takes to live a long, healthy life.
Yeah.
It forces us to look at the biology of these ancient creatures and ask, well, what do they share in common?
Right, because they are very different animals.
Exactly. But when you strip away the environmental differences, you are left with a very distinct biological rhythm that completely opposes the way we currently live.
That is exactly the core friction of the material we are diving into today. The text points out this massive, contrast between how these ancient, incredibly long-lived animals exist and our modern human obsession with high-intensity everything.
Everything has to be intense now.
Everything. The current mainstream paradigm constantly tells you that you need to be doing intense cardio, sweating buckets, pushing your heart rate to the absolute limit.
And constantly eating small meals to keep your metabolism burning hot.
Right. The whole graze all day advice. But the biological secrets of these ancient animals, as presented in this script, seem to contradict absolutely all of that.
They really do.
So to help me synthesize all of these concepts, especially from the perspectives of evolutionary biology and functional medicine that the text brings up, I am joined by our resident expert.
Thanks for having me.
Always great to have you. And I think it is fair to warn you right at the top, to our listener, the arguments we are about to unpack from this source material are going to challenge just about everything you currently accept as conventional wisdom regarding diet, exercise, and aging.
That is a very necessary disclaimer. The concepts in this translated script really do attempt to flip conventional wisdom upside down. We're going to be looking at the body not as this infinite regenerative machine that gets stronger the harder and faster you push it, but through a very different, much more measured lens.
Okay.
We are going to explore the source's central thesis, which is that longevity might not be about how fast you can go or how much you can endure, but rather how effectively you can slow down and conserve your biological resources.
How effectively you can slow down. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand that, we really need to jump right into the first major theme of the text, which is the paradox of speed and the consumable engine.
Right.
The script paints this incredible cinematic picture right at the beginning. It asks you to visualize the rough, deep, freezing waters of the Arctic Ocean.
Pitch black down there.
Pitch black.
It's
and down there, you have this massive Greenland shark just gliding along. Then the text hits us with this mind-blowing statistic. This animal, which lives for over 4 centuries, has a heart that beats only 5 to 6 times per minute.
It's almost hard to comprehend.
5 to 6 times. If you think about your own resting heart rate, sitting somewhere between 60 and 80 beats per minute, it is just staggering.
Yeah.
And the source points out that it shares this trait of being extremely slow with the tortoise and the whale.
What's fascinating here is how the text frames our biological clock in direct relation to that slowness. The source introduces a central metaphor that really anchors this entire philosophy.
The engine metaphor.
Yes, the idea of the consumable engine. The author asks us to look at our human organs, our heart, our pancreas, our entire digestive system, down to our cellular machinery as consumable parts.
Okay.
They are framed as having a predetermined, finite number of uses over a lifetime.
So we are not talking about a perpetual motion machine here. The text is likening our biology to a battery with a strictly limited number of charge cycles.
Precisely. The text is suggesting that we do not have an unlimited well of biological operations. From this functional medicine perspective, every single heartbeat, every digestive cycle, every time your cells divide or produce energy, it takes a microscopic toll on the machinery. Wow.
So if you look at the Greenland shark with its 5 heartbeats a minute, the argument is that it is stretching its finite number of engine cycles over 400 years.
It's pacing itself.
It is radically, relentlessly conserving its biological resources.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second, using the very friction the text introduces.
Sure.
Our entire modern fitness paradigm is built on the concept of use it or lose it.
Right, absolutely.
We are taught that the heart is a muscle, and to make a muscle stronger, you have to break it down and push it hard. But when we reframe our modern habits through this consumable engine lens, the contrast the text draws is genuinely jarring.
It really is.
It deliberately contrasts the slow, deliberate movements of the tortoise and the whale with the typical modern human. Picture it. You are at the gym, on a treadmill, running at a steep incline, sweating profusely. Your heart rate is pegged at 160 beats per minute.
Or you're gasping for air while doing high-intensity interval training. Exactly. And the mainstream narrative tells you that you are building your engine, making it bulletproof.
But the evolutionary biology viewpoint presented in this text argues the exact opposite. Pushing your heart rate to its absolute limit, constantly keeping the internal engine running hot, the text actually likens this behavior to biological self-harm.
Self-harm. When I read that in the script, it stopped me in my tracks.
It's intense.
That is an incredibly provocative phrase to use for something like going to a Tuesday morning spin class.
It is provocative, but it is necessary to convey the gravity of the source's argument. The premise is that this constant high-intensity output is rapidly eroding our life force.
Right.
Instead of building long-term durability, the text argues you are prematurely wearing out your consumable engine. You are burning through your finite cycles at an accelerated rate.
The car engine analogy the text uses really grounds this concept for the listener, I think.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Think about a brand new car. If you get in that car every single day, put it in neutral, and just floor the gas pedal until the RPM needle hits the red line, and you just hold it there.
It's not going to last.
Exactly. What is going to happen? You are going to get an overheated, quickly worn-out engine. The gaskets will blow, the oil will degrade, the metal will warp.
Right,
It is
yeah.
going to break down way before its time, regardless of how well it was built in the factory. The text says that by constantly revving our heart and our metabolism through intense exercise and constant heavy eating, we are essentially redlining our own biological RPMs.
And this brings us right to the biological mechanism behind why this redlining is so damaging.
Yeah.
This is where the text transitions from the broad metaphor of the car engine to the actual microscopic cellular reality of human metabolism.
Right. Let's dive into that cellular reality. This is the free radical cost of high-intensity exercise.
Yeah.
The text makes this bold claim about minimizing energy consumption, but looking at the biological breakdown they provide, it seems to all hinge on the byproducts of cellular energy.
That's the key.
If I'm reading the source correctly, the issue isn't the movement itself, but the exhaust our cells create. Walk me through how the text explains that process. What is actually happening when we redline the engine?
According to the biological breakdown in the source, it all comes down to cellular respiration and the exhaust produced by our mitochondria.
The powerhouses of the cell.
Exactly, the powerhouses. Whenever our cells produce energy, specifically a molecule called ATP, they consume oxygen and fuel. But this process is not perfectly clean. It generates byproducts.
Like smoke from a fire.
Yes. And some of these byproducts are highly unstable toxic molecules called reactive oxygen species, which the text refers to by their more common name, free radicals.
Free radicals. We hear that term thrown around all the time in skincare commercials and supplement
Oh,
ads,
constantly.
usually followed by a pitch for some expensive antioxidant cream or a berry smoothie.
But in the context of this translated script, they are positioned as the literal villains of the aging process. They are the biochemical exhaust fumes of our metabolism. To elevate this beyond just a marketing buzzword, we have to look at what a reactive oxygen species actually is.
Okay.
It is a molecule that is missing an electron. Because it is unstable, it violently searches for an electron to steal from anywhere it can.
Wow.
It will steal from your cellular membranes, from your proteins, and most dangerously, from your DNA. The text explains that a lower metabolic rate, like the Greenland shark's slow, steady engine, means the body's mitochondria are producing significantly fewer of these free radicals.
So less exhaust.
There is less exhaust, less leakage, and therefore less structural damage to the cells over time.
The text actually describes a 3D animation concept to visualize this for the viewer, and it is pretty terrifying when you think about it happening inside your own body.
It's a great visual, though.
It is. It asks you to imagine your healthy, perfectly normal cells. Now imagine these free radicals as little, chaotic, burning sparks of damage flying around inside you.
Just ricocheting around.
Exactly. They attack the normal cells, stripping away those electrons, causing a process called oxidation. And the script is very clear, leaning on the established free radical theory of aging. This oxidation is not just an unfortunate side effect of living. It is the literal mechanical driver of aging.
Yeah.
It is biological rust.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. When you expose metal to oxygen and water over time, it rusts and structurally weakens.
Right.
Inside your body, the more fuel you burn and the hotter you run your engine, the more of these reactive oxygen sparks you create, and the faster your internal infrastructure rusts.
It's rusting from the inside out.
This oxidative stress damages the lining of your blood vessels, it degrades your joint cartilage, and it mutates your cellular blueprints.
So this brings up what I call the CrossFit or marathon conundrum presented in the text.
Ah, yes.
The Force offers a really sharp, direct critique of modern fitness culture. We see people pushing themselves through daily, grueling, high-intensity interval training or logging 60 miles a week for marathon prep.
Which is heavily celebrated.
Totally celebrated. But we also know, scientifically, that we need muscle mass and cardiovascular competence to stay healthy as we age, right? Frailty is a massive killer.
It absolutely is.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does the text reconcile the very real need for physical strength with this severe warning that pushing the heart rate to the limit floods the body with this rusting exhaust?
This raises an important question, and it is where the text requires careful reading. The source does not argue against movement or the maintenance of physical capability.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
It argues specifically against the intensity and the chronic dosage of the movement. The functional medicine perspective here warns that pushing the heart rate to its absolute limit on a daily basis is what causes that massive, unmanageable flood of free radicals.
The sparks.
Yes. When you are sprinting or lifting to the point of absolute failure, your mitochondria are working so frantically to produce ATP that they leak massive amounts of these reactive oxygen species. And that flood leads to the rapid aging of blood vessels and cells because the rusting is happening far faster than your body's natural antioxidant defense systems can repair it.
It is outstripping the repair crew.
Exactly.
So if sprinting and high-intensity lifting are off the table, according to this energy minimization strategy,
Right.
What is the alternative? How does the text suggest we actually move to mimic the turtle or the whale while still, living a human life?
The source proposes a complete paradigm shift, moving entirely away from high-intensity, maximum heart rate exercise and shifting toward endurance-focused, incredibly slow, consistent exercise.
And the ultimate exercise, according to the specific recommendations in this script, is simply walking.
Just walking.
The text provides this really specific, idealized visual. Picture a middle-aged person walking leisurely but consistently through a beautiful, quiet forest.
It sounds nice.
It really does. Their chin is tucked, their posture is impeccable, their shoulders are back, and they are breathing easily through their nose. They are not gasping for air, they are not sweating through their clothes, they're just moving fluidly.
And here's the why behind that recommendation for you to consider. The text explains that slow, constant movement like walking does exactly what we need it to do.
Okay.
It improves peripheral blood flow, it engages the musculature of the legs and core, and it drastically lowers insulin resistance by allowing muscle cells to slowly uptake glucose.
Oh, wow.
But crucially, it achieves all of this without stressing the joints, and most importantly, without redlining the heart.
It is the perfect simulation of the ancient animals. You are moving like the tortoise.
Exactly. It perfectly mimics the constant low-impact engine use of those long-living creatures. You are keeping the biological machinery lubricated and moving. You are maintaining the structural integrity of the chassis.
Back to the car metaphor.
Right. But because the effort is aerobic and low intensity, your mitochondria are operating efficiently. You are not flooding the system with those rusting free radicals. You are burning fuel cleanly.
That makes perfect sense when you frame it around the consumable engine idea. You are putting miles on the car, but they are gentle highway miles, not drag racing miles.
That's the perfect way to look at it.
But movement and exercise are really only half of the equation in this text. We have talked extensively about how we move our bodies and how we spend our energy. Now we need to transition to the other side of the ledger.
How we fuel our bodies.
Exactly. Because the text introduces a second major driver of aging, and depending on how you read it, it is arguably even more damaging than the high-intensity exercise.
Yes, the text moves from the exhaust of the muscles to the profound burden of digestion.
The burden of digestion.
The source identifies our modern eating patterns, specifically frequent meals, and the resulting blood sugar spikes as the second massive culprit in rapidly wearing down our consumable engine.
The text takes aim directly at the anatomy of a blood sugar spike, and it doesn't hold back.
Not at all.
It specifically lists the dietary triggers that are the absolute staples for so many of us in the modern world: rice, bread, noodles, and sweets. These are the foundations of the standard diet.
When you consume these foods, particularly in the quantities and frequencies that are common today, you initiate a very chaotic and demanding biological chain reaction.
Okay, walk us through that.
The text describes how eating these refined carbohydrates causes your blood glucose to shoot straight up into the bloodstream. And because the body tightly regulates blood sugar,
Right.
because too much glucose in the blood is actually toxic, the body has to respond aggressively, which inevitably causes that blood sugar to plummet right back down.
The script compares it to a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Up and down, all day long.
All day.
You have a bagel for breakfast, you spike and crash. You have a sandwich and chips for lunch, you spike and crash. You have pasta for dinner, another spike and crash. What is the actual biological cost of this daily roller coaster ride on our organs?
The cost is severe: chronic organ overwork. The text paints a highly vivid picture of the pancreas, which is the organ responsible for managing this chaos.
Right, insulin production.
Yes. Every time that blood sugar spikes, the pancreas is forced to sweat.
Sweat.
That is the exact deliberate word the text uses. It is forced to sweat as it frantically pumps out massive amounts of insulin to shove that toxic excess glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells.
Sweating organs. That imagery really ties back to the earlier idea of biological self-harm.
It does.
You are forcing your internal organs to work in a state of constant overdrive. If you were physically sweating all day, every day, you would collapse. But we expect our pancreas to do exactly that. And it is not just the pancreas taking the hit, right?
No, the entire digestive system is implicated in the cycle of overwork. The source points out that by eating the culturally accepted 3 meals a day, plus snacks in between, the digestive system is entirely denied any meaningful period of rest.
None at all.
Think about the energy required. Your body is forced to continuously synthesize and churn out highly acidic stomach acid. The liver and gallbladder are constantly releasing bile.
Wow.
The intestines are continually contracting, moving, processing, and absorbing all day long. The engine literally never gets to turn off and cool down.
And the fallout from this constant churning and spiking isn't just a matter of the organs getting tired. It is active, systemic damage.
Yes.
The text highlights a very serious biological warning about things called glycotoxins.
This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. When blood sugar is constantly elevated and fluctuating, it leads to the creation of these glycotoxins, which are more formally known in the medical literature as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs.
AGs. So appropriate for a topic about aging.
Exactly. The text explains that these compounds are formed when excess glucose molecules in the blood essentially crash into proteins and lipids, binding to them and mutating their structure.
So the sugar is literally sticking to our internal structures and caramelizing them.
That is an incredibly accurate way to describe glycation. It's like caramelization. And the result is that these tissues become stiff and malformed. The text specifically notes that these glycotoxins subject our blood vessels to chronic inflammation.
So they lose their elasticity.
Right. The smooth, flexible lining of your arteries becomes rigid and irritated.
The script calls it a massive, exhausting war of attrition inside the body. Your pancreas is sweating and desperately pumping insulin. Your intestines are churning without a break. Your blood vessels are stiffening, inflamed, and under attack by these glycotoxins.
It's a brutal environment.
It sounds exhausting just thinking about it. You can see why the text argues that this lifestyle accelerates the aging process so dramatically.
It is exhausting at a foundational cellular level. If you pair the oxidative stress from high-intensity exercise with the glycation and inflammation from a carbohydrate-heavy, high-frequency diet,
It's a double whammy.
it is the absolute definition of running your consumable engine into the ground as fast as humanly possible.
So this is where the deep dive takes a fascinating turn. How do we stop this internal war of attrition?
Right, what's the fix?
If the standard advice of eating complex carbs and working out hard is the problem, what is the solution? The source presents a highly specific, and let's be absolutely clear, potentially controversial solution.
It is controversial.
It suggests a massive paradigm shift in our fuel source. Now, to be clear for the listener, we are just unpacking and analyzing the argument exactly as it is presented in this translated video script. We are not doctors prescribing this. We are exploring the philosophy of the text.
Important context.
And the text strongly advocates for abandoning carbohydrates entirely and shifting to a diet centered heavily around animal fat and meat.
That is the definitive argument the source makes. And to understand their reasoning, rather than just reacting to the controversy of an all-meat or high-fat diet, we have to look objectively at the mechanics of saturated fats as they were described in the context of this energy minimization strategy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the text argues that quality saturated fats, it specifically mentions grass-fed steak, butter, and egg yolks, are actually the cleanest and most stable form of energy you can possibly consume.
Which goes against everything we've been told.
It directly contradicts the low-fat dietary guidelines we've been handed for the last 50 years.
It does. But the core reasoning in the text ignores the cholesterol debate and focuses entirely on that blood sugar roller coaster we just discussed.
Okay.
The argument is metabolic. Unlike carbohydrates, which instantly convert to glucose, when you consume these animal fats, they have an incredibly minimal impact on your blood sugar levels.
The visual the text uses to describe this is beautiful. It compares your blood sugar on a fat-based diet to a completely calm, undisturbed lake.
I like that image.
Instead of a roller coaster, your blood sugar remains flat, smooth, and steady all day. Because the blood sugar isn't spiking, the pancreas isn't triggered.
Exactly. This is the physiological goal of the source's diet. Without the glucose spike, there is no emergency signal for insulin. The pancreas is finally allowed to stop sweating and just rest.
Finally.
And because you are maintaining that calm lake, you are avoiding those massive fluctuations of glucose. Without excess glucose, you are preventing the massive formation of those advanced glycation end products, the glycotoxins.
Which in turn stops the chronic blood vessel inflammation.
I see.
The engine stops overheating, the rust and the caramelization both stop. But the text goes further than just preventing damage. It describes a profound metabolic transformation that happens when you make this switch.
The metabolic switch.
It is the magic of ketosis. The text vividly outlines this transition period. It claims that within a few days of eating this fat-rich, practically zero-carb diet, your body essentially swaps out its primary engine.
The source explains that in the absence of dietary carbohydrates, the body is forced to adapt. It ignites its own internal fuel reserves.
The body fat.
Yes. It begins tapping into your visceral belly fat and stored subcutaneous body fat, routing it to the liver, and converting this fat into a completely new, highly efficient energy source called ketone bodies. Specifically, beta-hydroxybutyrate.
Ketones, and the text is incredibly enthusiastic about these. It claims these ketones are not just a backup fuel, like a generator, but actually an incredibly clean, preferred fuel that feeds the brain and the muscles perfectly, without the oxidative exhaust of glucose metabolism.
Furthermore, the text points out a fascinating mycological and physiological side effect of this metabolic switch.
What's that?
It claims that once your brain is running on steady ketones and you eliminate the wild swings of the blood sugar roller coaster, what the author calls fake hunger completely disappears.
Fake hunger. I think everyone listening knows exactly what that feels like.
Oh, definitely.
Is that feeling at 2:00 p.m. where you aren't actually starving.
Yeah.
You have plenty of stored body fat to survive on, but your blood sugar has crashed from lunch, so your brain is panicking, sending emergency signals, and screaming at you to eat a bagel or grab a sugary coffee immediately.
Precisely. That is a biochemical reaction, not true starvation. The text argues that without those crashes, you are freed from the tyranny of that fake hunger.
You are no longer eating by the clock.
Right. You aren't forcing down breakfast at 8 a.m., taking a lunch like at noon, sitting down for dinner at 6 p.m., just because societal norms dictate it is time to eat.
You are liberated from the eating schedule. You are only eating when your body truly requires raw materials, which on this dense, fat-based diet might be very infrequent.
Good.
And that liberation, that ability to comfortably go hours without food, leads us directly into the final and perhaps most profound concept in the text, the ultimate cellular reset.
This is where the entire energy minimization strategy truly peaks and synthesizes its core arguments.
Okay, let's tie it all together.
The text outlines that once you are in this fat-adapted state, burning ketones and entirely free from fake hunger, the natural, effortless progression is to enter a state of intermittent fasting.
Right.
Specifically, the source points toward moving naturally toward one meal a day, commonly known as OMAD.
The text makes a really important distinction here that you need to hear, especially if the idea of eating one meal a day sounds like absolute torture.
Which it does to a lot of people.
Right. The source stresses that this is not about painful, forced starvation. You are not white-knuckling it through your workday, obsessing over food, staring at the clock, and fighting your biology.
No, the text frames it as the pinnacle of metabolic flexibility.
Metabolic flexibility.
Because you have adapted your engine to burn fat, your body becomes so efficient at utilizing its own stored fat for fuel that it simply doesn't register a need for external food inputs for 16, 18, or even 20 hours at a time.
Wow.
It is a natural, comfortable, and effortless pause in eating. You are simply running off the battery reserves.
And what actually happens inside the body during that long pause? If we aren't digesting, what is the machinery doing?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of longevity, this is where the biological magic really happens, when the stomach, the intestines, the liver, and the pancreas are finally allowed to achieve a state of complete and total rest.
Which they never normally get.
Never. When they are not processing incoming food, it triggers what the text calls the ultimate anti-aging switch. It shifts the body's resources from digestion to deep repair.
It activates a cellular mechanism called autophagy.
Yes.
And the text is quick to point out, to lend serious credibility to this concept, that the discovery of the mechanisms behind autophagy actually won the Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine.
That's right.
We are talking about the work of Dr. Yoshinori Osumi in 2016. This isn't internet pseudoscience. It is heavy-duty, internationally recognized biology.
It is foundational cellular biology. Autophagy translates literally from Greek to self-eating.
Selfie.
And while that might sound alarming or destructive at first glance, the text expertly explains why this precise mechanism is the absolute key to cellular rejuvenation and extending the life of the consumable engine.
Okay, how does it work?
When you fast and nutrient sensors like MTO are inhibited, the body realizes no new building materials are coming in, so it has to scavenge internally.
The text uses a highly visual analogy to explain this process, and honestly, it's brilliant.
I love this analogy.
It asks you to imagine autophagy as millions of tiny Pac-Man cells suddenly waking up, activating, and roaming around inside your body.
And what are these microscopic Pac-Man cells hunting for? The text specifies their targets very clearly. They are looking for weak, sick cells.
Okay.
They are hunting down aged, misfolded protein waste that is built up inside the cells over years of metabolic exhaust. And incredibly, the text notes they even target and consume the early sprouts of cancer cells or senescent zombie cells that cause systemic inflammation.
Zombie cells.
Yeah, cells that refuse to die and just secrete inflammatory markers.
So they are acting like the ultimate internal cleaning crew. They are sweeping through the factory floor and picking up all the damaged parts that the oxidative stress and glycotoxins left behind.
Yes. They hunt down these harmful, damaged elements, they encapsulate them, they break them down into their basic amino acids, and then this is the crucial regenerative part. They recycle them.
They recycle them.
They turn that garbage into clean energy and brand new building blocks to construct fresh, healthy, cellular machinery.
The script summarizes this entire state as a cellular reset. It compares it to urban renewal. Imagine tearing down old, dilapidated, dangerous buildings inside a crowded city and using those exact same bricks and steel beams to build brand new, structurally sound skyscrapers in their place.
It is the body literally rebuilding itself from the inside out.
It's incredible.
The source frames this process of deep autophagy, induced by giving the digestive engine a prolonged daily rest, as the most powerful, scientifically backed, and entirely free secret to literally reversing your biological age.
She was the ultimate antidote to the wear and tear of the consumable engine.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? Let's put this all back together and look at the big picture for our listener.
Good idea.
We started this deep dive by asking you to imagine a 120-year vision. We wanted to know how to get there without spending the last 40 years in a state of medical decline.
Right.
The text concludes with a really powerful, evocative image. An 80-year-old person walking energetically through the woods. Their back is perfectly straight. Their physique is muscular, lean, and capable. They are returning home to laugh with their family over a healthy, nutrient-dense, meat-centric meal.
It's a beautiful picture.
They aren't frail. They aren't heavily medicated. They are fiercely, vibrantly alive.
To achieve that specific state of second youth, as the text beautifully calls it, the source outlines 3 core pillars that we have explored in depth today.
Let's recap them.
First, you must consciously minimize your energy consumption and rethink your physical output. You avoid the high-intensity, joint-destroying, free radical-generating exercise and instead embrace the slow, steady, endurance-building rhythm of leisurely walking.
Second, you completely transition your fuel source away from the blood sugar spiking, inflammation-causing carbohydrates. The text argues you replace them with high-quality, stable animal fats to keep the engine running smoothly, preventing glycation, and ensuring the pancreas never overheats.
And third, you give your heavily burdened digestive system the ultimate gift of complete rest. By embracing metabolic flexibility and transitioning toward 1 meal a day fasting, you allow your body to naturally trigger that Nobel Prize-winning cellular reset of autophagy.
You allow the internal Pac-Man to clean up the rust. The ultimate promise of this translated script is incredibly compelling, even if the methods seem extreme compared to our modern habits. It tells us that by actively slowing down life's tempo to match the ancient evolutionary wisdom of the whale, the shark, and the tortoise, we can watch chronic diseases, inflammation, and obesity simply fade away.
They just fade away.
And in their place, we get to reclaim the metabolic vitality of a 30-year-old, carrying it with us into our 8th, 9th, and even 12th decade.
It is a profound paradigm shift from use it or lose it to conserve it and rebuild it. But as we wrap up our analysis, this material raises a final, lingering philosophical question that I think you should seriously mull over.
Oh, is that?
Throughout this deep dive, we talked extensively about the text's consumable engine metaphor, the idea that our heartbeats and digestive cycles are a fixed, finite number, like a battery draining.
Right.
But then the text introduces autophagy, which has the proven power to tear down and rebuild our cells entirely from scratch.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. That creates an interesting paradox within the text itself.
Yes, it is a fascinating contradiction. If high-intensity living constantly wears down our engine, but autophagy can literally recycle and rebuild the damaged parts.
Yeah.
Is our maximum lifespan truly a fixed number of heartbeats like the text initially suggests? Or does the power of cellular recycling mean that if we simply stay slow enough to minimize the daily damage and trigger autophagy often enough to clear out the rust?
Is there a limit?
Exactly. There might actually be no biological limit to how many times we can rebuild the engine.
Now that is a staggering thought to consider on your next slow walk through the woods. Are we a battery that inevitably drains, or are we an engine that can rebuild itself forever if you just give it the right environment?
It's definitely something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into longevity, the controversial mechanics of the consumable engine, and the unexpected, profound beauty of simply slowing down. Take care of your engines out there, and we will catch you next time.